What's up, everybody? Uh, Typically don't do videos on Monday, but here we are because Microsoft announced they announced some big stuff today, and I don't think people realize the gravity of the situation of what Microsoft just announced. And so this is Xbox Scarlet related. This is everything else. And I wanted to do a video because I feel that strongly about this, that Microsoft just announced their future under the disguise of a gaming platform. Pretty big deal. So Microsoft, what they announced today was Project xCloud, which is their game streaming service that is coming in 2019 in public trials. They said they're testing it right now internally. That's no big surprise. We know Microsoft's been working about this for a while, but they said public trials will happen in 2019. Now, there's a couple things to note here. What this is basically everything we kind of expected, right? They said, hey, we're building these custom servers, which are shown here, and what they're doing is they're Xbox boards that are basically put into a rack, or into a blade that goes into a rack that's going into Azure, and is going to help them stream this stuff around the globe. And it's a gaming platform like we always kind of expected. Here's them showing off a demo of an Xbox controller connected via Bluetooth to an Android device, and they're playing Forza, and that they say, hey, this is the future. This is what it's going to be. And yeah, so this is great stuff. And the reason why I'm kind of like really excited about this is because this goes so far beyond gaming. What Microsoft is doing here is they're going to stream a game to a console without a thin client. Don't get me wrong, the Scarlet thin client, I'm still believe that it's coming. I've actually seen some more evidence that suggests that it's still coming in the 2020 timeline for the Xbox refresh that I'm expecting at that time. But here's the idea. If Microsoft can stream a game to not even to a thin client, to a phone like that, and last week, 2 weeks ago, they announced these virtual desktops for Windows. You can see where this is going. They're going to have virtual desktops. They're going to be able to stream everything locally. They're going to put it on any device. And what they're doing here is they're working in the gaming segment first. Now, granted, that might seem more complex than you would think, but it's actually a little bit easier because you're not working with applications. You're working with confined environments, confined specs, and you're working on a stable platform like Xbox, so there's no variation in hardware or anything else like that. And so by perfecting the game streaming model, they're going to work this in the consumer world first, and then after that, I would say 2021, maybe 2022, they're going to start introducing enterprise grade streaming. Now think about this. AutoCAD, perfect example here. AutoCAD is a very intensive application that you need a high-end machine to run because it's very graphics intensive. You need a lot of GPU compute to render the objects. Imagine being able to use something like a Surface Go with 5G or even LTE that is then streaming from Azure. You're running a virtual desktop, you're streaming it to Azure, you hit go, fans spin up in Azure, GPU compute processes, renders the CAD, and streams it back down to your device. Microsoft's building towards a future of where your entire Windows world lives in the cloud and is streamed to whatever device you want. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a phone, it's a desktop, it's the Andromeda device that we've been seeing, which I actually think might be related to all this as a personal companion, because if everything lives in the cloud, including the GPU, the compute, all the software for streaming apps, all you need is a display. And the larger the display, the better. Folding screen would look pretty cool. And not to mention, they announced with the game streaming stuff today an on-screen overlay, so you don't actually have to use an Xbox controller. And if you go back and look at the Andromeda renders, that's a folding display. Imagine being the on-screen display is using that, and while the game is being streamed to the top screen. You can kind of start to see why maybe they're waiting on the Andromeda device. They're waiting for this game streaming stuff to come around. You can see how they can take game streaming, pivot it into an application-based workload such as AutoCAD. Think about editing video for that matter. You upload the raw video to the service, you edit it in the cloud. When you're ready to render your video, all that GPU compute in Azure crunches it in seconds, and it's just streamed down. If they can work out the latency and everything else like they believe they have, and I actually genuinely believe them with gaming, everything else makes a lot more sense and is a lot easier. So with these public trials, they're going to be testing latency and everything else, but they're using this as a test bed for every other streaming service that they are going to be working on behind the scenes. And this is the absolute future of Microsoft. If you don't think this, you're going to have some tough times ahead, because I think thin clients are going to be where Microsoft is going to go eventually. We've seen thin clients in the past. They're nothing new, but not at this scale and not at this capacity. And Microsoft is going to be one of the few companies that can do it. Amazon could probably do it. Google could probably do it as well. But they're going to have a hard time, companies that don't have clouds, to compete with things like this. Granted, I don't think laptops and desktops are going to go away overnight. All this stuff is still going to stick around. It's going to be a slow adoption, but for Microsoft, this is another bolt-on service to Azure, which is everything that they love. Gaming as a service, software as a service, Windows as a service is what Microsoft is building towards, and we're going to have streaming as a service coming backwards down that pipeline. And this is going to be very interesting. I'm going to do a little bit deeper dive right up here in a little bit, but I just want people to understand that this gaming solution is only the start for Microsoft. This is the tip of the iceberg for Microsoft, because once they figure out what the consumer, they're going upstream, they're going to broaden the appeal to desktops, to everything else, and then they'll go to the enterprise, because you can imagine how big of a proposition that is. Look, just have a terminal. You don't need, your workers don't need to buy hardware anymore. You can reduce the amount you're spending on hardware every year. All you need is just a display, and then we stream everything else. It makes complete sense. And so just keep that in mind as you watch Microsoft build this stuff out. I'm, if you can't tell, I'm pretty excited about this, because all the pieces are really starting to come together now, and it's going to be fun. I think the next couple years are going to be great for Microsoft. I think they're hitting on all cylinders here with the streaming stuff, and I think Phil Spencer is doing a wonderful job building up towards Scarlett and that next-gen Xbox release. I do want to point out that they very explicitly said in the video that they are not abandoning the traditional console sales model, that this is a bolt-on, because you can imagine the appeal too, that if people can play this on their phones, the base that could buy the game is exponentially increased. And so it's a win for the developers, it's a win for Microsoft, it's a win for the consumer. Granted, Sony's going to have a tough time competing with this, although they can probably, anything can be solved with the right amount of money. And so just keep that in mind as you watch Microsoft build this stuff out. This is going to be, it's going to be neat. And so just a quick Monday video for you guys. Have yourselves a wonderful week, and we'll catch you back here next time.